Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the Week in Games. Welcome all. I hope you had a blessed January. We are well on our way through February. At the time of this video, we are close to Valentine's Day, which my wife considers the greatest scam. And so we protest by having a barbecue and chilling and watching a show. That's just kind of what we do. Love is in the air. We just finished almost 40 days of rain here in the Pacific Northwest, and I will not miss it. I also, however, just finished being at one of my favorite board game, war game conferences in Bellevue, Washington. And it's basically 5 days of lots of people just playing games and having fun. Very inclusive, very welcoming, very educational. I loved watching people, particularly in the war game arena, being able to just not only play games, but play history, and even being willing to share kind of the information they know about it, because I love history. And it's basically, it's classy gaming with classy people, and yes, they let me in too. Before I get to the news, I wanted to actually give a shout out. Back in January, I had talked about how during every January day we watch The Big Year, and we play Wingspan. Someone suggested this book, Boarding Without Borders, Burning Without Borders, which was a game which I thought, no, what the heck? It was like $7-8 on Amazon, and I want to thank that person because I finished reading it, and I absolutely agree. It is a really, really interesting book. The individual did literally spend a year going around the globe finding birds and whatever. And while the premise itself might not seem interesting, what I'm surprised is how huge of a deal birding is for really a lot of people. And two, this, if you have any sort of like jadedness of humanity, and there are times when I have bouts of it, this kind of will restore a little bit of my appreciation for humanity and the amount of people that really helped this individual without even knowing who he was, who just were on board with his vision and helped him in every way they could using whatever means available. So thank you for that recommendation. I love it. If anyone else is interested in it, it's called Birding Without Borders. Check it out. Let's get to the news. Okay. There is excitement in the air. Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth was a game I considered extremely lackluster. I didn't really hate it. I didn't really love it. I didn't find it to be even remotely my favorite Lord of the Rings game. But now there's an expansion coming out later this year, so clearly I have to buy it. Anyway, it's Shadowed Paths, I believe, and it's an expansion that comes with 5 additional characters, a new damage type, because I needed more ways to hurt myself. Probably coming out in Q2. Now, why is that interesting to me? Because I think I might have yammered about this before, but there was a game, Lord of the Rings Living Card game, that I absolutely hated, rated it a 4, and then over time I ended up rating it an 8, and I still think it's one of the top, a very top-notch cooperative game. I still have an idea that someday I would like to return to this game. I thought that there was enough pros about it that the lackluster parts I hope would eventually, either I just grow accustomed to it, enjoy it, or not. The biggest thing for me was just the meaningless terrain and stuff. There were a lot of perks about it that I liked. It's worth a shot. So if you are interested in it more than I am, you'll probably want to know and have it on your radar for Q2. If you are not, I'll just let you know, because I do think I would like to try. I also didn't mention there is an update to the application that runs the game that gives you a little more of an adventure mode, and that might be more up my alley. I might end up trying it because I don't have anything else to play. But anyway, the other thing on Lord of the Rings is that we've already had Lords of Middle-earth, we've had Warriors of Middle-earth, so it makes sense that now we have Kings of Middle-earth, another expansion coming out for War of the Ring. So because you can never have too many War of the Ring variants. War of the Ring is the quintessential game. That and Middle-earth Quest are my 2 extremely favorite games all time. I will not turn down playing them. And finally, Labyrinth, the War on Terror, a GMT game that simulated the conflict between, really the United States and and Islamic Forces in the Middle East is going to be out on digital later this month, and probably I think 14 more days, 15 more days. And it will give an opportunity for those of you who don't always get it to the table to give it a shot digitally. Now, the previous game, Twilight Struggle, is my favorite game of all time. And the digital version, while it was a little rough initially, became a game I played hundreds of games of. I am very much looking forward to this. Labyrinth is so asymmetrical that I had a very difficult time getting my head around it and learning it. I just didn't get it, even though the rulebook was like a third of the size of your average TNT rulebook. But I ended up getting it, and I ended up understanding it, and now I definitely appreciate what they're trying to evoke as far as that setting. Yeah, so now let's get to my question of the week. Question of the week, and this is a repeat question. This is one I get from people who see my collection, see my board game equivalents, and more so in the last year or so, they'll say, like, aren't you a little too old to be playing board games? That's a question I have. Now, I have turned 50. It is true. I'm not ashamed of it, but I'm also not proud of it. It does happen, and I am 50, and I have an absurd amount of board games. Growing up, as a 50-year-old, as growing up, you're taking care of kids, life, hectic jobs, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, etc. Gaming has ebbed and flowed for me, and only in the last probably 10 years have I been able to sort of carve time more consistently. And I've used the pat answers. No, you're never too old. How many years have you left? That's a question that's come about. I'm not going to lie. At 50, you do start saying, well, my life is statistically over half over. How many years do I have left? Do I need all these games? And it started to hit me a little more real than it did back when I was a 40-year-old smart aleck who thought he knew everything. There are people that play games in their 70s, and they don't keep many games around that I've seen. I think there was an interesting topic in a forum the other day about, like, hey, you know what? I've only got my years are waning, so how many games do I play? Well, I'm 50. I'm not 90. My dad lived to be 97, so statistically, I am on the outer spectrum, so I still have room to go. But it is interesting. I don't actually answer that automatically anymore with, of course, you're never too old to play gaming, because there are ramifications as I get older. I don't want to be the guy that just has a bunch of board games. I'd rather be the guy that was kind to everybody, that was always friendly, that, lived out his faith with integrity. So no, I'm not too old for gaming, but I am not just ascribing to the typical rationales. I'm not too old because I still play for the experience, the learning, the camaraderie, and as long as it doesn't take from or cloud from the more important things like faith, family, and basketball, then I will never likely be too old in a capacity to play games. I do think I probably need to start trimming my collection, because right now, if I sat down and played one board game a day, I'd be 57 before I was done playing through my collection. That's a little overkill. So any comments on that, I'd appreciate. If you're young and going forward, if you're 90 and you're like, you're a fool, I have 9,000 games, by all means, bring it on. I'm 50. I can take it now. Anyway, let's get to my 3 games. Okay. 3 games. I came back from the conference all jazzed up, because that's usually what people do when they come back from conferences, all jazzed up about board games. What did I get? Dual Powers. Dual Powers is a game for 1 to 2 players that goes over the conflict in the Revolution of 1917. Its effects still ripple through the world, but it is an interesting and clever 1 and 2 player game. I did get a chance to watch it played at the convention, and because it was on sale by one of the vendors, I felt compelled to buy it. I may even do a review of it. I may not, but second, we have Living Planet. This is the latest from Christian Bollinger, known for Archipelago, Earth Reborn, and the ill-fated A Dog's Life Kickstarter, where the guy took my money and ran along with everyone else's money. But this Well, I should say the guy doing the Kickstarter had no idea what Christian Bollinger's involvement really was. But this is a game in space where you are contending similarly to Archipelago with people, places, and things around you, except the planet itself is actually like vomiting up dangerous things to try and thwart you. It's not semi-cooperative. It is competitive. There is a cooperative variant and there are solo variants, but that's the second game. And finally, even though I played a boatload of games at the conference and enjoyed all of them, and there were some great memories, I actually played a game that I'd heard great things about from the author of Undaunted Normandy, but I didn't realize how cool this game was until I played it, and then I instantly bought it and the expansion because I realized this game could be a classic in my house. It is War Chest. The box I don't like. I like the style of the box. It opens up in this nice sort of, like a lights camera action. It's bulky to store. Don't like that. But it comes with this set. If you've ever played Splendor or seen Splendor and you've seen those awesome poker chips, that's what this is. Imagine, if you will, that you have a game of war, a battle war, Battle Lore, Memoir 44 kind of simplistic map with chess pieces using Splendor chips. And you think that it's boring, but it's not. It is actually really easy to teach, really fun to play. It was the highlight, and of course I had to get the expansion pack because. Anyway, with that, let's get to Alphabet Soup. Okay, we're at M. M is for Mookie. That's good. Anyway. M is an interesting one. There were a lot of entries in M. A lot. It was apparently a high emphasis to have games start with M. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Top of the line game, I'm going to go with Merchants and Marauders. To this day, it is still the consummate pirate game that I play. I've played a lot of good pirate games recently, ones that are very, very good. Merchants and Marauders is still the top consummate, this is all about pirates game. It's still the closest things to come to Sid Meier's Pirates that I have played. It is still not as good as Sid Meier's Pirates, and I still believe somewhere out there is the greatest Pirates game ever made. It either hasn't been created yet or someone's hiding it really well. But it is the top of the line in the games that start with M. Bottom of the barrel. Now this one's kind of embarrassing. I'm going to go with Mr. Game. Mr. Game is horrible. I went back and I didn't even realize this is back in a less kinder, less gentler version of me when I reviewed it and put in some reviews, not on Hairbrand Games, but on I believe Board Game Geek. It is so terrible and so wrong and so bad, and irritatingly more so because the author decided to rate it a 10 and then make shill accounts and use those to rate it a 10. I think a lot of those have been removed, but some still remain. For those who don't know, shill account is when you make an account on a site and you just post a review of your game and then you never come back. You can tell because it shows like created account, last logged in, same day, and it's been years. But it was terrible. I believe my comments were something similar to, it's either an inside joke against the industry or someone really lived in a bubble in putting this steaming pile of puke out there like a leprous appendage. If Indigestion and Microsoft Paint had a baby, it would still look down on this game with derision and disdain. Yeah, clearly not a good day, but I do remember the game and I do remember it sucked. Now, other than that, there is another game called Montana, not the new one by Rudiger Dorn, but one previous that I had hyped hopes for because I always go to Montana every year for camp. But it was really lackluster and lame, but nothing as bad as Mr. Game. Let's get to some happiness. What game came out of nowhere and shocked the snot out of me? Middle-earth Quest. I bought that going, I wonder if this is good. I'd played some other games, and I had War of the Ring and whatever, and this was this one was the quest. The quest part is what they got right. You venture into different areas of Middle-earth. You contend with different creatures and units and back and forth. You're off the beaten path, so it's not trying to recreate the book like War of the Ring is. It's trying to create, stories around it. It is a tragedy that it wasn't received better than it was, and that it hasn't been reprinted, because it has, and it introduced the card combat, where every single type of unit you played had a separate, unique kind of play style in cards, and it was just a vast. You lay it out on the table, it takes up way more space even than War of the Ring. So that one is definitely came out of nowhere and just rose to the top of the mountain and kept the rings. Riches to Rags, Mistfall. Mistfall started with a very intriguing idea, and I think it was a true labor of love by the designer. I got it, and it took a while because they sort of inverted or cross-sectioned the way games usually go in for a turn order, like I take my turn, we do the upkeep, whatever, and it went through this strange, different pattern. I eventually figured out the pattern of how the game flowed, but by then it still was more, it just became too much ritual and too little fun. And so it started off great and then went down from there. Not a bad game. Once again, just because my riches go to rags doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad game. It's just one that I ended up selling off, and of course I bought the expansion or the sequel to it, and I still didn't really like the sequel, but I kept the sequel because you never know. You never know when there's going to be a storm. Rags to Riches, what game started off going and then rose. Magnifico is a game that features Da Vinci-like, the dudes on a map, but with Da Vinci machines and such. And it started off being a little lackluster. I think it came out at a time when other games were coming out that I thought were a little better dudes on a map. But over time, I'd play it again and again, and I'd be like, this is very clever. And so I liked that one. The Meaty Mighty Manwich game, and the game that probably could have easily been top of the line too, is Mage Knight. Merchants and Marauders only beat it out by a little bit for top of the line, but because it already fit in this category, if you want a game that's a brain burner, brain twister, mind meld, Mage Knight is that for me. It is a vast, epic adventure game that you'll play, but like plowing through uncharted, untrailed wilderness to eke out. I mean, it's got a ton of things going on for it. It's not your simple, like I roll my dice, I move this far, I attack this creature. You've got all kinds of layers of strategy. But the consummate. Test of Time. Mystery Rummy Jack the Ripper is a game that my wife still and I play routinely. Mike Fitzgerald, I believe Mike Fitzgerald, the designer, also went off to do Baseball Highlights 2045, which was another huge game. But he did this series of rummy games that weren't stupid. And our favorite of them is Mystery Rummy Jack the Ripper. We will play that game a ton. Also, shout out to Memoir 44, which routinely gets going. And so we're gonna go with that one as a runner-up. Memoir 44 is 14 years old. No. 16 years old. Came out in 2004. What have I done with my life? Oh, that's right. I've had fun. And then the Comeback Tour, a game I would love to see reimagined or redone, is Middle-earth Quest. I mean, I think I already hinted at that, but I would love to see Middle-earth Quest come back. I do fear that if it did come back, it would come back with a bunch of minis and a $200 price tag that didn't really add much. But I was kind of hoping that maybe a re-envisioning of Middle-earth Quest, because once you play it, you go, this is crazy. One person is Sauron, the other guy, everyone else is trying to make their way and help out and solve these. Bliss. Anyway, honorable mentions for theme, I would go with Mansions of Madness 2nd edition. I am not big on the horror theme, but this one did it in such style that I couldn't help but enjoy it. Highly recommended. And artwork. Artwork has to go to Mechs vs. Minions. This game was $79. It was basically $200 worth of stuff in $79. If it came out Kickstarter today, I'm pretty sure it would be in the $150 range. But they basically did this game as a labor of love, didn't make any money on it, just sold the copies of it in limited quantity, and wow, did it wow me. It is elegant. So anyway, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this rather elongated week in review, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.